Manny, do you have control to remotely mute people?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Thank you, Manny. Good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Manny. So welcome to this webinar, which is for the Technology Accelerator Challenge Fund Competition for standalone or rooftop solar systems, inclusive of e-cooking. My name's Sarah, and I'm the Associate Challenge Fund Manager for this particular project. Joining me today is Simon Batchelor from Gamos, and also in the meeting with us is Manny, our comms officer, who's going to be helping us along the way. Just to let you know that this session will be recorded, so if you want to look at it later on, you will be able to. You may, for that reason, want to keep your cameras turned off. That's completely up to yourself. What we're going to do, we're going to go through a few slides, a bit of an intro about MECS and the project, some of the questions, and a few other things that will be of interest to you. But what we would ask is, we will have a Q&A session at the end. And what I would ask is, if you would like to ask a question, you put these in the chat, and then we will go through them during the Q&A session, rather than trying to answer questions as we go. So I hope everybody's okay with that. I'm just going to share my screen now so that we can go through a little short presentation. Just bear with me. I do that. Okay, so I hope everybody can see that.
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Manny. Okay, so as the first slide says, that's the title of the webinar today, and that's the title of the project that we are proposing. So just a small little bit about MECS, Modern Energy Cooking Services. It's an 8-year UK aid funded project, which is run from 2018 and will run till 2016. We're based in Loughborough at Loughborough University, which is in the UK. Our objective, or one of our objectives, is to accelerate the transition to modern cooking fuels. So we're focusing on e-cooking, biogas, bioethanol, and bio-LPG. Research and supports the transition in enabling environment, supply chains, and consumer behaviour towards modern cooking. So that's kind of a little bit about MECS as a whole. In terms of the STARS project, it's the latest project in a competition in a series of challenge funds that the MECS programme are engaged with at the moment. Previous challenge funds have promoted innovation, early research and piloting, of all of which seek to rapidly accelerate the transition from biomass to clean cooking, particularly in the areas of modern energy cooking services on a global scale. So this project STARS, it's looking to build on this progression of interest by inviting yourselves to test innovative configurations of existing technology and business models to pilot and demonstrate standalone or rooftop solar-based systems, which be utilised for clean energy cooking. So in short, the purpose of the MECS STARS initiative is really just what I've just mentioned just there, is to test innovative configurations of existing technology and business models to pilot and demonstrate standalone or rooftop solar-based systems that will be utilised for clean cooking. clean energy cooking. So in terms of the finances for this project, the maximum amount you can apply for is 58,000 UK pounds. Payments will be made in pounds sterling, so you would need to ensure that you have a bank account that will accept pounds sterling. The monies itself will be broken down into individual disbursements. So a 50% grant payment will be made on contract signing. Then a 10% grant payment will be made in month 3, but to initiate that, you will have to provide a satisfactory progress update. Then in month 6, there will be a further 20% disbursement. And again, that's on submission and an approval of an interim report and a completed statement of grant usage form. The final 20% of the payment will then be made on the submission of an approval of your final report, which needs to be completed at month 10. Just to go back, a statement of grant usage form will be provided. That is as it says on the tin, really, it's a form that you complete, which provides information and proof of what you've spent and how you've spent that money during that period. But there's plenty of help and assistance to be able to complete that. Though we will be funding multiple projects, potentially between 6 and 8 across the 4 lots that are available. And again, as I've just mentioned, the disbursements will all be set out in the grant disbursement agreement that you will sign between yourselves and Loughborough University. A copy of that is available as part of the grant documentation, which is on the website. Unfortunately, this also allows the university, if you do not meet your objectives and deliverables, we would and do have the right to withhold grant payments until satisfactory submissions have been made. But as I say, you can look at the grant disbursement agreement. There is one available on the website, and I suggest that you do read that, and you are required to acknowledge that you've read that as part of the application process. So there's 4 lots available, lots A to D. Lot A is household level standalone solar PV systems, inclusive of e-cooking. Lot B, institutional and commercial level solar-based system, inclusive of clean cooking. Lot C, rooftop solar connected to a grid, but specifically tied to e-cooking appliances. And Lot D, which is innovations in marketing and demonstration of the use of heat batteries for clean cooking. My colleague Simon, he's going to go through these lots with you and give you more technical information on these, as that's his area of speciality. Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Simon.
Okay. So, just to reiterate the welcome to everybody, let me just give you some background. Actually, when MECS was being considered, it was originally focused on solar home systems and whether the price point of solar home systems could enable some sort of e-cooking through a solar PV, battery and e-cooking energy efficient appliance. We gradually realized that actually electric cooking as a whole had been severely neglected in low and middle income countries, and that's why you see the breadth of the research across our website and our work. And we also realized that whilst the prices were coming down when we started in 2017, 2018, they were not quite there yet. They do seem to now be reaching a point where it is viable to create solar home systems, but also to leverage solar for institutional and commercial. There's a whole set of work on rooftops. I'll go through these more slowly in a moment. So it's very important that each one is set in a specific market context. There are lots of possibilities, but they only work in some markets and with the right sort of market conditions. For lots A and C, we note that there are now direct current energy efficient electric pressure cookers and induction stoves. They're both available now. However, inversion back to alternating current remains a possibility and is acceptable. One of the price points that has not really changed is the cost of acquisition of a customer and the cost of customer retention and after sales report. The whole industry of solar home systems that was focused initially on lighting, it costs a lot to reach out to people in very remote areas who by definition are beyond the grid. And that remains true. Though many of those rural people also have seasonal income across the whole year, and that needs to be taken into account. So when we talk about solar home systems, we're not just asking for a new configuration of kit, because you can go on to Alibaba and get the PV and a battery and an energy efficient appliance. But it's about how will you reach the market that's your target market, and how will people be able to afford it. Those of you who know the MECS work will know that carbon finance is increasingly a strength, particularly because of the metered methodologies, the digital verification of carbon, and the emerging Article 6 provisions. Those are all good for helping to make the whole thing affordable and to create new business models. Of course, we're happy with PAYGO and other credit mechanisms for mitigating upfront costs. So let me just come to the lots. Lot A, as I said, it's about standalone solar PV systems. Manny, can you mute Paul K, please? It's about standalone systems. It's about innovating configurations, and mesh networks are within the scope of Lot A if you wanted to do a mesh network. But a sort of micro centrally controlled mini grid is not in scope. We expect the majority of the submissions for Lot A to be in locations where there is low electricity access, such as rural areas and informal settlements where the grid has not been connected and is unlikely to be connected for a while. In those same sort of areas and beyond those, there are lots of emerging possibilities for Lot B, which is institutional and commercial level solar-based systems. This includes sort of productive use, using solar during the day to actually cook food and serve it to passing clientele. But it also means getting involved with institutions such as schools, hospitals, or prisons. We are aware that in India, there is some interesting innovation in solar concentrators that are suitable for institutional and commercial kitchens, where the concentrator creates steam, and it's the steam that is then transmitted into the commercial kitchen. That would be suitable for Lot B. Sorry, I'm just Please hold a moment. Okay, no, my phone was buzzing and I wasn't sure whether it was Sarah telling me to something like speak up or speak less. Okay, so lot B, invites institutions. We're aware of schools that put in solar powered PV systems for powering the whole school, and then found that they can actually add e-cooking. That's relevant to lot B. Lot C is difficult to grasp immediately. There are some very interesting initiatives, again, particularly in India, where rooftop solar PV is being encouraged, and you then get a feed in to the main grid. But there are some discussions around combining that rooftop solar with a transition from biomass to e-cooking, which could make it eligible for carbon finance. And if that is possible, then the carbon finance could be developed and designed not by taking the average grid emissions, but by actually linking it through to the clean provision of solar PV electricity. Again, the possibility of digital verification through Internet of Things cooking devices on the cooking equipment and on the solar equipment enables a clear justification of why the installation of new and additional rooftop PV could be supported of a transition to e-cooking. And then lot D, we have funded over the years a thread of work, and there is a community of practice on heat batteries. This is where the electrical generation of heat is just turned into heat batteries. This is particularly relevant for, again, very remote situations, or where the electrical grid is not very strong, and therefore you can trickle heat a heat battery. The cost of heat batteries in our research has suggested that it's not that much cheaper than a chemical battery, because chemical batteries, lithium has come down so much. But there is a greater promise of job creation, local enterprise, and overall system cost reduction. So we would like to see innovation with heat batteries, particularly now the marketing and demonstration of their use. There's been quite a lot of basic research on how to store and what the insulation looks like, but few of those have gone to a commercial promise yet. The exception to that is the Surya Nattam cooker in India, which was developed by the Indian oil company, and that seems to now be reaching the market. So lot D is about heat batteries, just working back up. Lot C is about rooftop solar. Lot B is institutional and commercial, and lot A are standalone solar systems. Thank you. Back to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, so we're just going to very briefly go through the questions now. These are not the full questions by any stretch of the imagination. They're kind of shortened down slightly, just so we can have a quick look through them. But what I would say is all the questions in their entirety are on the website as part of the application process. So just make sure that you do have a really good read through them when you're putting in your application. So question 1, outline your innovative configuration and explain the learning objective of your proposal. So this is kind of split into 2 sections: your outline and what is the initiative configuration that you're proposing. Again, stick to an outline and a brief overview, as more specific elements are covered in later questions. And then the second part is the learning part. What are you trying to learn? And whether this pilot, is it a pilot or is it the beginning of a sustainable supply? So yeah, we are expecting you to describe your intended learning processes and describe how you will assess the business model and update the cost model. There is a 500 maximum word count for this question, and the maximum score available is 10 for this question. So question 2, existing experience of provision. We're expecting you here to provide an overview of your experience to date, any challenges you've faced, and if you have faced challenges, how you've overcome them. And again, as much explanation about your past experiences and how they've influenced the design of your application. If you do not have any previous experience of provision, but you are seeking to enter these new markets, you should document your observations on the sector's experience and then show why this has led you to propose this application. This question has a 400 maximum word count and a maximum score of 5. So question 3, market description. Quite straightforward. What type of users are you going to target? Are you going to be working in specific geographical regions? It is important you describe why you're targeting a specific market, as this will demonstrate that you've understood who your customers are, whether they be new, potential, and also existing. Maximum word count 400 and your maximum score is 5. So question 4, this is a little bit more, it needs a little bit more information. Business model and financing. As you can see, this is split out into 3 sections. So the first part is outlining the business model you're wanting to use. As you can see there, it's saying, what is your proposed business model? What innovative configuration are you proposing? How are you going to acquire these customers? And what after service will be implemented. Then the next section is the financing model for customers and users. How are your customers going to gain access to finance to cover the upfront costs? And then we'd like you to describe the intention and the partnerships you have formed with financial providers to support these customers and users. And then finally, leveraging other finance. Would like you to explain whether the proposed project is part of or is in preparation for use of some form of results-based finance, and whether you're intending to use carbon finance at some point. Proposals that mention results-based finance or carbon financing without an explanation, unfortunately, will be marked down. So it is quite important that if you mention either of those two, you put in some form of explanation. This has got a slightly bigger maximum word count of 600 and a maximum score of 10. Question 5, project management. So your response in this area, it needs to include a Gantt chart of your activities. It needs to explain clearly relevant risks for the project, skills, roles, and the experience of your project team. And your response also needs to include and to demonstrate that your team is capable of completing all these tasks within the 10-month period. So yeah, maximum word count for this is 300, and then you have a 250 word count for up to 5 members of your team, and the maximum score available for this question will be 5. Question 6, project finances. So all your cost information must be clearly explained and all rates must reflect a fair market value. It should clearly describe what you will spend the funding on, and it needs to demonstrate value for money. And only eligible costs associated with the STARS project will be reimbursed. Again, if you have any queries regarding this, please check out the eligible expenditure paragraphs, which are part of the grant disbursement agreement. As I mentioned earlier, any claims made for items that are not eligible, as detailed in this agreement, won't be paid. So this question has a maximum word count of 300 and a maximum score value of 5. So that's the questions. As I say, they are not the whole questions. My suggestion is that you take some time to thoroughly read the questions as they appear on the application information that's online. So just a couple of top tips. As I say, each question has a detailed explanation and is very specific about what is required to make your answers up. Take time to read the questions, understand them before you even think about trying to answer them. What we want you to do is we want you to answer the question as we've requested it, rather than you writing what you think we want to hear from you. Where the question's not been answered, unfortunately, the questions will be marked at 0. So it pays for you to take the time to read the question, make sure you're answering the question and not just telling us what you think we want to hear, because that will not benefit you at all. As I've just gone through, some questions are made up of more than one part, so they have a couple of sections each, which we've just been through. Make sure you answer all the required parts of the question. Again, where they're not answered correctly, unfortunately, they'll be marked down. And as I've mentioned several times, all the supporting documents is available on the MECS webpage. They hold lots of vital information and about the project, the application process. So please make sure you read them before you start submitting your application. Eligibility. All organisation types are eligible. Unfortunately, previous SC2 or Cosmo awardees aren't eligible to apply for this particular project, but previous recipients of FCDO funding and other Loughborough University projects are welcome to apply. Organisations who fund grant-making schemes of their own are not eligible to apply. Consortiums of organisations are, but there must be one lead organisation identified. An organisation can only be named as the lead on one application, one lot. If 2 or more proposals are submitted with the same organisational lead, then unfortunately this will be rejected. A lead organisation can be named as a consortium member on one other project, but you need to make a clear indication of the capability to participate in both projects with high quality outputs and to be able to meet the 10-month deadline. A consortium member is defined as an organisation who is actively involved in the implementation of activities. An organisation who is not a named lead on any projects can be named as a consortium member on up to 2 projects. If they are named on more than 2, again, these will be rejected. Only suppliers of technologies can provide their services to multiple projects and be named in multiple applications. And any applications suggesting working in more than one country, again, they will be rejected, unfortunately. Okay, so making an application. Again, I will just reiterate, all the competition documents are available on the website, along with the application form. Everything's there. Completed application forms should be submitted to the MECS Loughborough email address, which is on this slide here. You must make sure that the subject heading is as appears on this slide, stars, lot, A to D, whichever one you are applying for. The competition deadline or closes at 23:55 British Summer Time on the 6th of October. And applications submitted after the deadline will not be considered. Unfortunately, extensions will not be granted under any circumstances. So you really, if you are going to apply, you need to adhere to that deadline of Sunday, the 6th of October. So key dates, again, this is available on the website, so you can see all the key dates. The competition, as I mentioned, closes on the 6th of October. We are hoping that we will inform successful applicants and unsuccessful applicants sometime during week commencing the 14th of October. I would say it's potentially going to be nearer to the end of that week. If you are one of the successful applicants, you will then be required to complete our due diligence questionnaire and submit that along with the supporting documents at some point during week commencing the 28th of October. But if you are successful, you'll be given that information at the time. Then the final selection of applicants and notification and contracting will start in November. Project start dates will be is going to be the 1st of December. And then during December and January, we will have kick-off meetings with the successful applicants. And then skipping forward to the end of the 10-month project, your final report deadline will be the 30th of September 2025. Competition documents. If you go online, the 4 documents listed here are there available for you to look at, read and use to support you submitting your application. I won't go through them because we've kind of touched on them several times. Eligible countries, I'm not going to read through this list. It is available, or it's available here, as you can see. It's also available in the documentation online. But again, just to be made aware, proposals suggesting working in more than one country will be rejected. Okay, so that's me. That's my slides done. So I think we're going to go over to questions now. So if you have any questions, as I mentioned earlier, if you can put them, any questions you have in the chat, that would be great, and then we will take them from there.
There's a hand up, Sarah.
Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Sorry, it's behind my thing.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. This is Poonam from Sun King. I have one question. As you said, lastly, can we apply for the multiple countries in one application?
Unfortunately, no. As it says here, proposals suggesting working in more than one country will be rejected on. So you will have to submit just for one country.
Okay. And can we submit 2 applications with 2 different countries?
That I'm not sure. I will need to check that one. Just, yeah, if I can come back to you for that one. So,
okay. Will you mail us?
Yes, I will do.
Okay. I have one more question. So 6th October is the date of the submitting the application. After how many days will, in case if we get select, after how many days a month we have to launch the product sale? I'm asking this question because this particular product is not available in our portfolio right now, but we have both the products, clean cooking a separate product line and the solar home system as a separate product home line. So we are planning to innovate a new product which can be combination of both these. So that is why I'm asking, what are the timeline approximately when we are expecting to launch the sales if we selected for the grant?
Well, with it, obviously the project itself is for 10 months. So you would need to factor all of that into your proposal and your Gantt chart.
Okay, so
that would be for you to
it
kind
says
of
project start date is 1st December 2024.
Correct. Yes, that's right. And your final report deadline is the 30th of September 2025. So that's your 10 months. So that would really be down to yourselves to put in your Gantt chart and your application how and when you plan to implement that.
Understood. Thanks a lot for your response
No,
and time.
No worries. Okay. Anybody else? I think I've just seen
Hi,
Simon.
I have a question. I'm Aritra from University of Exeter. I have a question for the funding one. So can we actually ask something for salary cost, or everything should we go for the product or the project?
Sorry, can you just repeat that?
My question is that with this funding, can we actually ask anything for our salary, or it is everything based on the project?
You can factor in staff time, but you
Okay.
would have to break all that down into the budget that's required as part of the application. So when you go in to start completing the application form,
Yeah.
there's a section in there that asks for a budget breakdown, and part of that would be your team members and salaries, etc. It's
Okay.
on page 12. If you look when you go in on page 12 of the application form, there's a section there where you would be required to list out all salaries.
Okay. And my second question is that when I submitted the EOI, I select lot A, but can I now submit my full application with the lot B or lot C?
Yes, that's absolutely fine.
That's okay.
The expression of interest was more of an admin exercise for us rather than holding you to then applying for that particular lot. So yes, you can apply for whichever lot you wish to.
Yeah, and my last question is, because it seems like we need a very high tier level thing. And if this is not the case, can you just propose some sort of concept-wise project, or it has to be some sort of product at the end of the project?
Simon, would you be able to answer that one, please?
Yeah, I think we're beyond concepts now. We would like some demonstrable project that targets a particular market context.
Okay. For an example, like this 50K, 58K, you said that you are not looking particularly adding some component from buying from Alibaba and adding them, right? Now, if I propose something completely new, and if that grant is not enough, how I will actually create a product? That's my question with this limited sort of grant.
If you don't think that you can get a viable product within that 58K, then I recommend you don't apply for the grant unless you have some matched funding from elsewhere.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Let me just tackle a couple of questions that are on the chat. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name now. Sain Sana. So asked the question about our expectation after the 10 months project. Is it to sustain itself as a business model, or can it be a one-time project? I think when you're making the application, we're looking for a projection towards a sustainable business model. One of the things I didn't say in my summary was that whilst prices have come down and continue to come down, the prices actually slowed slightly during the COVID years. So if you look at most learning curves for some of the key technologies, they flatten out from sort of 21, 22, 23, and are just now sort of beginning to dip again. So in the grant documents on the website, you will see that we have sort of said, we have allowed for you to do some future think and say, well, we would expect these prices to come down a further let's say 20% over the next 3 years or 5 years. So even if the price point for a sustainable business is not right now, if you can show that it probably will be within 3 or 5 years, then that would be great. All the projects should look towards a sustainable business or a sustainable rollout in some shape or form. But I think behind your question is, can you actually get there in 10 months? That may not be possible. So it's about showing the trajectory of the project rather than stating that you will definitely get to the point of a scaled rollout within 10 months. I hope that answers the question. Just looking at other questions in the chat, Sarah. In the application form, it mentions text in diagrams or tables is excluded from word count. We can include any number of tables, or is there some kind of restriction? I think that's one for you, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we will accept diagrams, but we want to keep them to a minimum, really, where possible. We don't want something that's kind of full of boxes and tables and diagrams. So yes, if you can put them in, but you can keep them to a minimum, that would be great. What is your eligibility? Just looking down. So what is your eligibility criteria of the countries? Well, there is a slide that does show you eligibility for countries. So that is available on the website as well. I wasn't going to go through it because there's quite a lot of countries on there. But there we go. There are your countries of eligibility. Just working down these chats here. Okay, so I'm just working down the chat now, Simon. So there's a question here. May I know how many projects a single country could have?
That's an interesting question, because I don't think we had considered that you would actually try to go for 2 different products and different projects within a single country. I guess, Surrender, it's all about a coherent presentation in your application form. It could be 2 very small projects, I guess. I think we would consider that. I think we're just thinking that each country would have one application, one project. Ketchi, sorry about pronunciation of names. I need more explanation about Lot C. Yeah, it is a bit more tricky to understand Lot C. It is basically something about using solar PV in grid connected areas for enhancing e-cooking. So we can imagine that the grid is weak. Possibly there are informal areas that don't have strong connections in the grid. But also there's this thing in some Asian countries where you can actually install your rooftop PV and then feed it into the grid. That is acceptable, but by linking it to e-cooking, you could potentially access carbon finance in a way that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. How many will actually be selected for the grant? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that, Deval. I think, Sarah, you said between 6 and 8.
Yeah, we're looking between 6 and 8 spread across the 4 lots. So that's not something we're going to know really until after the applications have been in and reviewed, how many we'll have for each lot. Can we attach a supporting document along with the application form? Really, we want everything to be contained in the application form. We don't want any supporting documentation. So everything it should be possible to fit everything in that you need to fit in.
And I'll take Fina's question. Yes. Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, a not-for-profit school or government school, yeah. And then the solution may be applicable to other schools, but and therefore has a sort of a sustainable rollout trajectory beyond the one thing that you kind of achieved during your 10 months. It's helping the world understand the possibilities for the future. But it doesn't have to be profitable in the traditional sense of the word profitable. What type of institution fall within the scope of commercial cooking? So in our recent research, I mean, short answer is any. But in our recent research, we have identified very much a difference between schools, prisons, and to some degrees hospitals, where the clientele of the food, in schools, the children, they actually stick with relatively similar meals each day, and because they're not directly paying for the meal, there isn't necessarily a strong feedback mechanism on the quality, as opposed to commercial street food vendors, restaurants, cafes, etc., where the clientele are paying for quality food and a variety of food. So we're gradually honing down our understanding of institutional and commercial, that there is actually the two categories, the two typologies, which seem to depend on how much instant feedback the clientele can give the chefs and the cooks. But yes, any type of institution. Yeah, your question is phrased, what type of institution fall within the scope of commercial cooking? So institutional is slightly different to us than commercial cooking. Can Lot C also consider e-cooking systems connected to rooftop solar in institutions that are already connected to the grid and existing mini grids, which doesn't have enough capacity to power e-cooking, and we would pilot the combination with rooftop solar? Yes, Matthias. Okay, that's the end of the questions in chat. I see a hand up from Saisana. Did you want to follow up with what you were asking?
Yes, thank you for this opportunity. It's very nice grant, I think. And I would like to ask one question about, I'm from Mongolia. So I would like to understand what was the criteria that you choose these countries, and is it any possibility to include Mongolia in this grant? Because I can see the other Asian and Pacific small island developing states, and which is different. Like, is Mongolia eligible to this project? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a really interesting question. You're quite right. Mongolia is not on the list, and I have no reason why it's not. The list is built originally from low-income countries that the UK is supporting, but there are exceptions like India, which is an advanced country now. Kaisana, I think you could apply from Mongolia, but what we will do is we will check that after this webinar, and we will email you, assuming that you registered for this webinar.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Fortune, you had your hand up.
Yes, please. Hello, am I audible?
You are indeed.
Okay, so yeah, so what I just wanted to ask is regarding because when I saw the requirements, they asked for existing technologies and, exploring different business models and possibly carbon finance. So my question is, does it mean that all we need to do is, we could get subcontractors who will supply us with technologies and knit it all together, but we must do our market research and, find the right markets that fits, that current technology and solutions. So I wanted to be clear on this part. I don't know if my question makes sense.
I think so. The technology is evolving all the time, and certainly recently there's been a surge, for instance, in what are called camping generators, which are combinations of batteries with inverters, and they've found a market within developed economies where people can put them in their car and truck, and they can go out to camp in the wilderness for a couple of days, and they come with solar panels. So, for instance, we do know of a couple of groups in African countries that are exploring whether those camping generators are potentially a good match with e-cooking in certain market contexts. So that's a kind of an example of, I think what you're talking about there, Fortune, is sort of looking around and seeing what new technologies have emerged over the last 5 years, 5-10 years, and putting them together in an innovative business model configuration. So, how would that be rolled out in your country? But that's only one example. I'm just trying to off the top of my head. So does that answer your question, Fortune?
Yes, very well. You did justice to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions? I don't see any other hands. I'm going back to the chat.
I've answered the Poonam's question in the chat. How much the total fund size? £58,000. And I think that's the last question in there.
I think Poonam was actually searching for many projects, but yeah, that we have significant funds available, and we will see how good the applications are as to how many we will finally decide to fund. I see a hand flashing somewhere.
Yeah, it's Poonam.
It is
Once
Poonam.
again.
Okay.
Yeah, hi. So she said 800,000 pounds, right? The total grant
fund
size. The total fund size is how much? 800 pounds?
Well, no, it's slightly variable. We've set a target of 6 to 8 projects at the moment, but we do have funds for more than 8, and it will depend on the quality of the applications.
But per ticket, per applicant, it will not be more than 60,000 GBP, 60,000 pounds.
Correct.
It won't be more than £58,000 per project.
Okay. Okay. Oh. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
No,
Sarah?
I think if everybody has finished with the question. Oh, hang on, we have one last one. Any tips or suggestions that we should not miss in our application form? Well, Surinder, as we've just been through, I've done my little tips. Make sure you read everything thoroughly, answer the questions thoroughly. Don't answer the questions in terms of what you think we want to hear. What we want is what we've requested in the application information and in the questions. So all I can say is take some time, read it, and read it again if you need to, and then just simply answer what we've asked for. Answer the questions we've asked for, and I think you should be fine. As long as you do that, you should be fine. Hopefully that's answered everybody's questions. We've got no more questions in the chat and we've got no more hands up. So I think then we can call that a done deal. Look forward to receiving your applications. And if you do have any queries, you can send them into the MECS email box. Details again are on the MECS website. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks to both for this wonderful session and giving your time. Goodbye.
No worries. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for the insightful presentation. It was a pleasure.
No worries. Thank you for attending.